My name is Jessica, and I am going to be talking today. Hold it, please. Oh, here it is. Hi. About the orchestration of death. Now, to orchestrate something is to manipulate the elements of a situation to get a desired effect. The desired effect being creating a death story that people can heal from, creating a better death story. Who am I? Well, I am Jessica. I am a nurse in Flagstaff, Arizona at a level 1 trauma center. I do advanced trauma life support for nurses. I instruct that. I focus a lot of my nursing on saving people's lives, and then a lot of my nursing on educating people how to do death better. I'm a mom of This picture is old. I actually just had a baby 9 months ago, so I have 4 insanely beautiful children. I am an instructor of death, but most importantly, and the reason why I am here, is because I'm a survivor. So when I told my family and friends that I was going to be going in front of a whole bunch of strangers and talking about the worst day of my life over and over and over again, they think I'm crazy, and I don't know that they're wrong. I think they might be onto something. But the reason I'm here is because I have a really unique perspective. I have this perspective of doing traumatic death a lot. I have this perspective of seeing how death was done inappropriately for a very long time. And then I have this perspective of being a mother that has survived the death of my youngest child. It's a unique perspective that I think needs to be shared. I'm here because I did death completely wrong as a healthcare professional before Mason's death. It was just super unhealthy. Like if you guys were to come to me and your grandma died at the age of 126, I was like, oh God, I can't deal with that. And I would like not make eye contact with you and avoid you at all costs. I had a very unhealthy approach to death. I realized that the way that I did death personally, my fears, my insecurities, directly correlates with how my patients' families are going to heal. I'm going to say that again because that is profoundly important. The way that I did death personally directly correlates with how my patients' families are going to heal. I'm here because I know that everybody in this room has the power to make a difference. I've said this before, and there was a janitor in the back, and he was like, I think he was coming in to peek at the presentation and see it, but he was standing in the back, and I was like, everybody has a chance to make a difference. And then I stopped and I was like, do I honestly think that a janitor can make a difference? 100% yes. 100%. So could you imagine if you were in a death situation, you're holding your grandma's hand as she's slowly drifting off. And you're holding her hand and your grief is heavy and you're feeling pain. And then you hear some janitor making inappropriate jokes in the hallway. Does that affect your death? Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody has the power to make a difference. I'm here because my son's death was incredibly beautiful. In my opinion, it was 100% the gold standard. I've never seen anything like his death in an acute situation before. And I think that the only way to get death more beautiful in trauma is to talk about it. I'm here because I think it is our responsibility as healthcare professionals to have the conversation and invite the families into the room. So this is the slide that you guys are gonna think I'm a pretty horrible person, and stick with me because I promise I've gotten better on the other side of this. So I think a lot of you, how many people are in palliative care here? Okay, you guys are amazing human beings. So Hospice providers, palliative care providers, you guys do death really, really well. But us in cute death, we do not do it well. So I'm going to confess of how I was, and like I said, see me through the other side. So I was taught to take the family out of the room when somebody was dying. Have you guys ever done that? Is that a thing in Brazil? If somebody's getting CPR, do you take them out of the room? Okay, so I was taught that, and it's not like I was taught didactically. I didn't go to school and sit there and learn that I need to remove the family from the room. I learned that when I watched the nurses and the doctors say, you need to get this family out of here. It's too traumatic, move. It turns out it's not too traumatic, but we'll talk about that. I was taught that we need to hide resuscitative efforts. Again, it's just too much for the family. We need to protect them. We need to hide resuscitative efforts. I was very task-oriented, like this ABC 1, 2, 3 sort of nursing. I'm not sure if this is here yet, but in America we do so much charting that it's hard to make a human connection. It's rare for me to sit down in my busy day of charting as an ICU nurse and hold somebody's hand and make a human connection. Very task-oriented, very robotic. It's structured. I think, in general, it dehumanizes healthcare. In general, it does, but especially the death and dying procedure. So I would literally go from the operating room, and I would prep somebody for surgery, get the surgeon scrubbed in, and then I would go help somebody die in the emergency room. That's just it. It's not much thought went into it. I was crazy judgmental. We have a couple gangs in my town, and they're rivals. So a gang member came into the emergency room one day. I was the charge nurse in the operating room, and I get a call that there has been a gunshot wound to the head. Gang-related activity, it's not looking good. And me being this judgmental person that I was, I thought to myself, internally, I thought, why should I go take care of this patient? He doesn't want to take care of himself. What the hell am I doing? And I got mad. I was really upset that I had to do this. And then I get the call that we are bringing the gang member to the operating room. And then I was pissed. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do it. I was talking to my anesthesiologist as we were going down to the emergency department to get this patient. And I was like, this is BS. I don't want to go down and do this with somebody. I don't have time for this shit. We get down to the emergency room, and his death was imminent. He was actively starting to herniate, meaning that his brain was starting to go down into his spinal column. If we didn't get him to the operating room, he was surely to die now. And so the neurosurgeon wanted to try. And so we take the patient into surgery, pep him, we get everything. I literally got done scraping the brains off of his head. And the neurosurgeon said to me, hey, can you go talk to the family and just tell them we're doing everything we can, but it's not looking good. And I was like, sure, no problem. I'll go down. So nonchalant, stoic, sort of judgmental Jessica walks into the waiting room. And in the waiting room, I'm expecting to see maybe 30 gang members, people that were there with him. I don't know, maybe a neck-tattooed girlfriend. And when I walked into that waiting room, I think that he had 30 members of his family there. Mom and Grandma came up to me, and I told them exactly what the neurosurgeon told me. I said, yeah, well, hey, we're doing everything we can, but it's not looking good. Nothing in my presentation portrayed that I cared at all. When I said this, Grandma dropped to her knees and just started screaming. And the mom just stared at me in disbelief. There's no room for judgment in death. I think an unhealthy approach, personally, to death can negatively affect your patient's family. On March 31st of 2016, everything changed. Mason was run over by his father in our front yard at 9:40 in the morning. I'm a relatively competent human being. I've been in medicine since I was 15. I'm relatively competent. But when I looked at my son and said, he is dead in my head, I was like, well, yeah, he's dead. There's no way anybody, especially not a 22-month-old baby, could survive head trauma like this. There is no way anybody could survive. And my very next thought was, do you want to save him or don't you? Start CPR. Think of the psychology of that. I know that he is dead. I know that there is no way to save him. But I have to try. I have to have a little bit of hope. The studies that I've done have shown that when something that we love so tremendously is taken away from us, we just need time. As humans, we just need time to get our head and our heart on the same level. My head was saying, there is no way that he is going to live, and my heart was just begging for it not to be true. I need a little bit of time to let that equalize. So I work at the only level 1 trauma center in Arizona. So I know exactly where I'm going to go with my baby. And I made the decision that I was going to take Mason to the emergency department myself. So I scooped him up, and I got to the truck and got in the back of the car, and I was doing CPR on him while I'm holding him. And in doing chest compressions, there was this one moment that I was only doing chest compressions, and I thought, what the hell, Jessica? Do you want to save him or don't you? Give him breaths. Multiple times. I had to say, like, my head knows exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm just so messed up I can't possibly put it into something. So I gave him his first breath. And when I gave him that breath, my entire mouth got filled with blood, and this was very hard. When I got to the emergency department, I ran through the emergency room as fast as I possibly could. I was screaming for help. I was saying, grab the pediatric code card, get neurosurgery here. Please, you guys, I need help. My baby is dying. Please, my baby is dying. And I get to Trauma Bay 3, and I set Mason on the gurney. The very first thing that I said to Dr. Jennifer Kahn was, my baby is dead. She looked at Mason, and she knew he was dead. But she told her team to start CPR. What? That's it. Start CPR is what she did to give me the gift of a better death. She initiated the orchestration of Mason's death with Start CPR. What that does for a family that is watching their loved one die is like I said, it gives them time to get their head and their heart on the same level, but it also shows that healthcare professionals care, right? And so I think inherently, because I work at this facility and I know everyone there and they know Mason and they know me, they cared. They cared deeply and profoundly because they loved Mason too. And now that I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the process, when they started CPR on Mason, they were overwhelmed with emotion. I remember there was an EMT holding C-spine, That's when your hands are on the either side of the head. And he was on his knees just weeping. There was a nursing student in the corner that couldn't even look at Mason because it was too painful. There was a lab tech that was so nervous, she couldn't get her needle anywhere near Mason's arm. And I thought, holy shit, I'm scared too. I'm sad too. I don't want to look at this either. So these things that they did for me, the emotions that they showed, was a total validation. A validation that I have had a son that somebody loves, that I love deeply, and he is dying and it is sad. Them showing emotion was what I needed. So when we orchestrate a death story, sometimes maybe you're too late. Maybe they're already dead, right? So maybe you get to a scenario and somebody is dead. The orchestration of death does not stop here. The orchestration of death, there's just a continuation after they've died. So I want to talk about the continuation of the orchestration, but I realize I forgot to tell you guys that time slows down. Really, the only thing I want to mention on this one is when you are watching somebody that you love die, everything is like in slow motion, and every single breath is scrutinized. Like if somebody comes in and they're like, you're like, wait, what's happening here? Why would you do that? Because this is somebody I love. So pay attention when you guys go into these death experiences on your mannerisms, because it's going to be scrutinized. So the continuation of orchestration. When the time of death was announced, it's not like they just decided, okay, well, this is it. We're done orchestrating this death. After the time of death was announced, it's just prolonged the beauty of these moments. The last 2 minutes, so the doctor said to me, she said, Jessica, we're going to do 2 more minutes of CPR, and then we're stopping. The most excruciating 2 minutes of my entire life, because I knew that the entire team, this team that I knew that loved Mason and loved me, realized how final this injury was, realized that this was it, and he is gone. So in that 2 minutes, I came up to his ear and I sang the Goodnight song for one last time. I held him for 4 hours after he died, and that wasn't enough. I took his hair and I put it inside a specimen cup. I did handprints, I did footprints. I just let myself be. I let myself feel everything. I watched him get placed into a black body bag and wheeled away from me. One of the most profound things that I did was a picture of Mason's hand resting on my chest. And I think pictures after somebody has died is something that before Mason, I wouldn't have appreciated it. I would have thought somebody was losing their mind. I would have been a little nervous. I would have been uncomfortable. But now, I can't even imagine living my life without having this picture. I've been turned down multiple times for giving presentations to nursing schools and residency programs in the United States. They told me that this picture was too much, and I could just take it out, and then I can give the presentation. And I've rejected. I said, well, when you want me to come and talk about death, and when you want me to help your team. So this picture, you guys, it's beautiful. This picture is a validation that I have had a child live and die. If you look closely at this picture, you can see there's blood underneath my armpit from trying to save his life. You can see there's dirt underneath his fingernails. This is clearly a picture of a dead baby's hand resting on his mom's chest. It's clearly a picture of that. But oh my God, Is it beautiful? In fact, I think it's so profound and I think it's so important that I put it up in my house. I have a now 10 and an 8-year-old, and I thought, I'm going to show them this picture, and I'm just going to see how they feel about it. And if they feel it's appropriate, I'm going to ask them if it's okay if I put it on the wall. And it was. I asked Megan. Megan's my very in touch with her emotions child. And I was like, hey, Megan, what do you think about this picture? And she's like, oh, that's Mason's hand. And I was like, yeah, kind of shocked. Yeah, it's Mason's hand. And she's like, that's the last time that his body was on the earth, right, Mom? And I was like, yes, it is. And I said, can I get this on our wall? Would you mind? And she's like, oh, no, I love it. I love it. I'll just give him a high five when I go past it. And I was like, okay, we're doing it. I literally look at this picture every single day. It's more beautiful to me than so many things. Does death suck? It totally sucks. And it's heartbreaking, and it's unbearable, and it doesn't feel good. But I think in these unimaginable situations, I think that there's things that we can do. I think that there's things that we can do to make the death better. Now, I think coming to you guys and talking about this death experience, the only reason that I'm able to do that is because in his death experience, I got all the tools that I needed to help me heal. And so after his death, I was like, what helped me feel good about this? Why do I feel broken but complete? There has to be something to it. And so I started going to workshops with women who have lost children. And I started hearing death stories. I'm like, just tell me what worked. Tell me what didn't work. Tell me what you did. Tell me how your heart is. Tell me how you live. Can you take a deep breath? Tell me all of the things. And what I found is that everybody that has a good death has certain things in common. So I'm here to transform the way death is done. Okay? So I think that saturating the senses in a death situation is totally necessary. So we have 5 senses, right? I always forget the last one, so I wrote them down because I feel like a nerd when I'm like, I don't. So sight. We have to saturate all their senses. So sight. Let them see their loved one die. Okay? Smell. We all know what a dead person smells like, even if we've never smelled it. Taste. Let them kiss their child's hand for the last time. Hearing. Let them hear you try. Let them hear the panic in your voice trying to save their loved one's life. And then, by far, the most important is touch. Let them feel the warmth leave their loved one's body. In order for us to heal, in order for us to take a step forward, in order for us to breathe the next day, we have to believe that the death is true. We have to know that they have died. Bring them in. I think in healthcare in general, every single day of the week, we help people live well. And I'm going to say live well very loosely, because when I'm doing open heart surgery for the 9th time on a 94-year-old woman, I'm like, you got to question that. Well, yeah, it's our job to help people live and live well. But it's also our job, and much more profound and much more human, if we can help them die well. So I talk to people and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to give you some tools, and you're going to go out and you're going to do these things in death. You're going to involve the moms. You're going to saturate the senses. You're going to make a difference. Our job, no one came to us and said, as healthcare professionals, okay, well, yeah, you're going to have to fight for the family. You're going to have to get into a death experience and really, really try to make it better. No one said that. And quite frankly, if we did say that, I think 90% of the people I work with would never have gotten into healthcare, because it's something that inevitably happens, but we're all scared of. We don't get into healthcare to help people die. Well, some of us do, and you're amazing human beings. We get into healthcare because we think that we can help people live, right? We want to take care of humans. So I want you guys to fight to get into the death experience. Like, I want elbows slinging, and you're getting in there because you know how to make death a little bit better. I think another really important aspect, another really important tool to have in death is deeply explaining what's happening. Okay, I had a phone call from a panicked anesthesiologist that he just called me out of the blue, and he's like, Jessica, I need your help. Come down to the emergency department. You need to bring the pediatric airway cart. Get here now. I need you. And this particular anesthesiologist, he never panics. He's always calm, cool, and collected. And so I ran down to the emergency department with my pediatric airway cart, and I pushed it into the room. And as I walked in, he successfully intubated the patient. And so he was no longer panicked. I was no longer needed. And I'm looking around at this situation, and here is a 3-year-old child getting CPR, just intubated. I'm like, well, okay, where's dad? Where's mom? Where's grandma? Where's auntie? And I look around, and there was a father in the corner. Like, he had a table in front of him. The curtain was drawn, there was a chair, and there was about 150 people in the room. So he was in the corner, just standing there, could not see a thing in the corner. And I was like, what the hell, guys? Like, we've done this, we've talked about this. Is that an invitation into the death experience? No, he's not invited in. So I went over to him, and I told him my name. I said, hey, I'm Jessica. I'm one of the charge nurses here. Can I answer any questions for you? And in asking him this, I grabbed his hand, and I stood with him at the foot of the bed. And in standing there, he's like, yeah, I have questions. What in the hell is going on here? And I was like, okay. His baby was getting CPR, so I thought he probably knew that she was dying. And I said, well, your baby's heart has stopped beating, and we are doing everything that we can to help it beat again. And he goes, wait, her heart has stopped? And I was like, yeah. And he said, doesn't she need that to live? And I was like, yeah. Your child is dying, and we're trying to save her because we want her to live too. And he then proceeded to ask 4 million questions, like, what's that thing in her mouth? What are those pads doing? Why is he poking my daughter? All of these things. And so I answered all of his questions, and then we're standing there. And the efforts at this point have minimalized. Everyone in the room recognizes that the baby is dead, except him. So I'm standing there, and I was like, I am the most awkward person you will probably ever meet. Like, I say really awkward things. Today I showed up, my dress was unzipped. It was like, I'm just weird. I'm a weird, awkward person. So we're standing there, and I was like, I need to have him touch his daughter's foot. So he got to the bed, and he grabbed her foot, and then he kissed her foot, and he could tell that she was cold. And he just kept going up and touching her and feeling her. I left that situation feeling better about that death. Did I go home and feel happy or joyful? No, I totally didn't. But I went home knowing that this man would now have a foundation for healing. This man would know that his daughter is dead, for sure. And he would be able to transform that into healing, into the new version of him. So we have to deeply, deeply explain our efforts. Pictures. Is it awkward for you guys to take pictures of the dead in Brazil? Is that, no, it's an okay thing? So we've struggled. It's not okay. Oh, okay. That's what I thought. I was like, wow, you guys are so progressive. What am I even doing here? Okay, goodbye. Just kidding. What I've learned is that the picture is awkward. So when you go to ask somebody, especially with their children, and you say, would you like to take a picture of your dead child? People are like, get away from me. Who are you? Get the hell out of my room. And so I've gotten that quite a bit. So now I think it's pretty funny that my pediatric intensive care unit will now call me and have me ask about the pictures post-death. Because they're like, Jess, listen, I know you think it's really great, but I don't want to get shot down, so you come up and get shot down. Now I do it a little differently. And what you guys can do is you guys can say, hey, I went to a conference, and there was a woman there who lost her child. I lost Mason 3 years and 6 months ago, 3.5 years. I have literally looked at this picture every single day for 3.5 years. It feels that good. I don't look at this picture and feel overwhelming sadness. I look at this picture and feel joy that I've had a son. So you can say that. You can say, listen, I went to this conference. She was kind of weird, but it seems like the picture of her son's hand or her son's foot really made a difference. The worst thing that could happen, right, is somebody like throat punches you or something when you ask this question. And there's a lot of passion in death, right? So you really could get a little weird. But honestly, I'm not scared of weird anymore. And so when I go and ask families, and I'll bring a camera, like a disposable camera, and I'll say, hey, my heart feels whole again when I look at the picture of my dead son's hand on my chest. I just wanted to say that to you, and I'm going to leave you with a camera. And you can take pictures with your cell phone. This is up to you. I'm just telling you that this is an option to help you grieve. And typically, if you say it like that, you're not saying, if you come out and be like, hey, so you want a picture of your son? They're going to be super pissed. But if you place it as like, here's a camera, you can use your phone. If you want to, this helps people grieve. The reason the camera is good, what I've heard from families, is they never have to develop the film. They can take, I think it's 26 pictures on a roll of film, and they never have to develop it. They can keep it in the closet. They can do whatever they want. So that's a really nice thing. One lady actually told me that she left the camera with a nurse that helped take care of her child, and she said, okay, yeah, you can take the pictures, but I don't want this camera, so you keep it. And she was kind of mad at the nurse, for even asking. You take the pictures. So the nurse did. She dressed up the baby, and she put him in a beautiful outfit, and she took pictures. 3 years later, the mom contacted the nurse. And it gave me goosebumps. When she got the film developed, obviously it's very emotional, but she said that it was the most profound, most beautiful gift anyone has ever given her. Pictures are important. So the holding your baby, do a lot of you deal with pediatrics here? Or, yeah. So most of us don't do pediatric cases, right? Most of us are with adults. So holding your baby when they're a baby is easy. But what happens when your baby's 35? Okay, that's when it gets a little uncomfortable. What the nurses did recently for how old was he? 31-year-old man, is he had shot himself in the head, and he was very clearly dead. They orchestrated a little bit of death, but just to let the mom kind of see them do it and give her contentment that everything was done that he could. After the patient was pronounced dead, the nurses were like, shoot, what do I do? Holding your baby is really, really important, and Jessica's taught us all these things, and what do we do? And what they ended up doing is bringing a gurney up next to the 31-year-old. And his mom laid in bed with him for, I think she was 45 minutes. I was like, hell yeah, you guys, that's it. I didn't do that. That's my friends in the emergency department. They helped orchestrate this death. That lady was so blown away by it. She ended up, she wrote a letter to our CEO. She made a huge deal about it. She thanked everyone. And her big pull was, I just needed to be next to his cold body so I could believe it. I just didn't believe it. So for those of you that came to the workshop, I'm sorry about some of the questions I asked you because they're uncomfortable, but I want you guys to start the conversation, okay? And in starting this conversation, I want you to go home and talk to your husband or your wife or your mom and your dad, and I want you to act like somebody that you love more than anything in the entire world has died. I want you to create your gold standard death story. I told you Mason's, but I think that yours will probably be different. I want you to create your gold standard death story and then bring it to work. Bring it to work and help somebody have that someday. Ultimately, what I find when I ask people to do this, I find that they do want to see what's happening. They do want to hear what's going on in the room. They want to touch their loved one. They do want to do all these things. And so hopefully Mason's story will give you some tools to put in your toolbox to bring out at a later day. So bottom line is we need to be running into death. Can we change the outcome? A lot of times in trauma, we can't. A lot of times we can't change the outcome, but we can change the experience. So run into death. Try to give them a good death, a better death, so they can heal. So my new approach to death is obviously a little bit different. Do I remove the family from the room? No, unless they ask me to. If somebody says, I can't do this, can you take me? I'll take them. Am I judgmental? No way. Something that we've been fighting in our hospital is a suicide. There's a lot of suicide, and there's a lot of judgment around suicide. When people come down for patients that have committed suicide, actually, in my community, I'm trying to not say committed suicide and trying to say death by suicide, because when you're talking to a mom or a dad or a brother or a sister that has a victim of suicide, they think you're kind of like committing them to a crime. So when somebody comes in with death by suicide, people treat that situation like crap. They treat the people like they deserved it, they wanted it, they're the ones that did this, why should I care? The bottom line is they are somebody's son or daughter or mom or dad. They are loved insanely by somebody. It does not matter how somebody dies. It does not matter. What matters is we try to do it better. We are handed a shitstorm, and we need to somehow make it a little bit more feasible for somebody to heal. So try to do it a little better. Am I nonchalant? In death, I can't be nonchalant anymore because I have so much. I just think it's inappropriate. So I don't drop to my knees and start screaming with the families, but I let them see emotion. I let them know that I care because I truly do, and I'm truly sad when somebody dies. But I let them see me cry. I let them just hear that experience. The bottom line is we need to prepare, and by prepare I mean have the conversation with your loved ones. Create your gold standard death story. And then inviting the family into the room, saturating their senses, this empowers them. Whenever we invite somebody in and we grab their hand and we're like, okay, we're in this together, and we walk them in, you invite them in, empower them to make their own decisions. And the bottom line is healing. And this time I'm not talking about healing for the family, because I believe it to be true. If you have a better death experience, you set a foundation for healing. I'm talking about healing us, healing the healthcare professionals that do this day in and day out. If you can orchestrate a better death story for family members, then you can go home and feel a little bit better about what you've done. Healing. This is Mason blowing a kiss, saying goodbye. That's a very intense story. And I congratulate you all for showing up and just allowing yourself to sit through this and allowing yourself to be uncomfortable. Because I truly believe we cannot grow into a better version of ourselves unless we're a little uncomfortable.
Right up there.